All right, all right. Happy Friday to you. Please let me know in the chat room if you can hear me okay. Just want to make sure I'm coming in loud and clear. In a second, I'm going to lower the music, and we're going to get into this new Netflix program, this movie, Black Mirror. Hello, Joyce Yennon. I saw that blue light. And good old Marf did a video about that, so it was easy to see. I do not live in New York City, though. I live in Long Island, so I didn't see it myself, per se, but I saw it online, How's everybody doing? You can hear me. Great. Thank you, Leslie. Leslie's always there. She's always there. And don't be sending those demon kissy faces at me, the emojis. Check out my show if you want to know what we're talking about. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm going to come on over here, and I'm going to introduce myself to you in 1 second. This is a cool little show for us to talk about today, people. I am Jacob Israel. You are whoever you are. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for press and play. Spend a little time with me. I don't usually do live streams on Friday nights. Wasn't planning on doing one. Today was a day for me and the Dan to enjoy. Well, we've been enjoying each other a lot. The holidays are just the best, and she's home, and but it was a rainy day in New York, so I was looking forward to this Netflix movie. If you don't know anything about it, Bandersnatch is it's an interactive movie where you can choose. You choose as you are watching. You choose. As simple as a choice. What are you going to drink? You're going to drink the can of spritzer. You're going to drink the water. What are you going to drink? You click that little button. And then there are some pretty important questions that are asked along the way. Some morality questions. This was an interesting project, to say the least. I was watching it on a whole other level because I kind of see a lot of predictive programming going on, and I also see a lot of philosophy and the things that we talked about being revealed, almost thrown in our face. Free will is a very important topic. Do we have it? Do we have a choice in where we're born? Do we have a choice in how we look? I mean, I guess to a certain extent. Do we have free will? Or are our actions based on a bunch of other things? I mean, there's just something pulling the strings behind the scenes, getting us to jump when we're supposed to sit, or sit when we're supposed to jump. This Netflix show dives into that. Yeah, that's a scary little demon there. It's a scary demon. Of course, there's got to be demons in this as well, which has to do with the emojis that I was talking about, which has to do with the show I did a little while ago, which at the end of the program, I kind of teased that I was going to tell you all about an interesting story that led us into Christmas and how miraculous it was in a kooky dream. Of course, why? Why not talk about a kooky dream, right? That's normal. That's normal. But today, I watched Bandersnatch with the Dan. Danielle and I, we made choices as we went. And it's, there's a lot of hype. I don't know if you all, I'm going to ask you all in the chat room. I mean, did any of you hear about this? Did you hear about this movie? Was it something that you were interested in seeing? And yes, M Casual says that monster has an 80s new wave hairdo. Yes, well, this movie actually takes place in the 80s, which was kind of cool because it took place, I was in high school, right? So, I mean, I remember the 80s very, very well. I bet a lot of you do too, out there. Don't be pretending that you don't remember the 80s. I wore those parachute pants too. If you're new to the channel, my name's Jacob, okay? And I'm glad that you're here. I do a lot of different programs. I talk about a lot of kooky, interesting things. I always tie it into something that's deeper. I always try to tie in all of these stories into helping everybody, including myself, to go to places where we've never dreamed, to start dreaming, to get to those places, if you will, to see more that life has to offer. The more that's, we've been blinded. And sad to say, but a lot of people today aren't really living their life. And they're, creating a bunch of misery. And they're kind of stuck in this loop, which is why this show on Netflix right now, which it wasn't that great. I got to be honest. I'm going to give you my review. It was. It could have been awesome. It could have been awesome. For me, because of the subject matter, it was cool. The choices along the way, cool. The little games they tried to play with the viewer, it was cool. But ultimately, it was pretty boring. And some of the people that are reviewing it already are saying that it also gave you this feeling of helplessness. Like at the end of the movie, what's the point of life, right? What's the point? Is there somebody pulling our strings? Black Mirror Bandersnatch is a video game that makes you feel helpless. Try not to give you any spoilers. The idea of the story is in the 80s. Really cool programmer. He's the man. This dude right here came up with all those cool games, which actually Netflix, it's called Nosedive. One of the games that he that's actually out in this movie is actually, you can actually play it, and because they're blurring the lines between reality and I got to tell you, what they did with this really was blurring the lines indeed, because you became part of the movie. It became a kind of an experience where you're making the choices for the character in the story. Now, I'm not going to tell you what happens, as these choices are made and how this may or may not affect the character, because that would kind of defeat the purpose. And then what's the point of watching it? I don't want to ruin it for you, But this dude right here, this guy, this was my favorite part. There's a scene in Bandersnatch where, he's a programmer and he programs games. And the lead character, let me see if I can pull up a picture of this guy right here for you. The lead character, there he is, right there. You get a little backstory on him. He's not that stable. And as you see on the screen, these are stills that I took off of my TV. So, and I watched on Netflix, and I have a Roku. So, if you have a Roku, if you have certain devices, if you're watching it on your phone, for example, you can make the choices and you can take the different pathways that this movie has to offer. Will you accept or will you refuse? Is it milk or is it soda? What kind of music? You get to choose between that. What kind of interesting book is he going to read? You get to choose between that. And he's the lead character. And he comes across this book called Bandersnatch that was written by a guy who many would consider to be, a genius. I believe his name is Jeffries. But, at the end, after he writes this book, which is a book, let me see if I can pull that up for you, which is a book that has, you can choose as the story goes. So this guy, he creates this story, this insanely complex story, and he gets lost in it, and right before it's released, he ends up murdering his wife. So it's kind of like, he became obsessed with, go figure, a demon. What else is new, right? The demons. Because everything's got to have to do with that. The question of free will, which there's the definition, the power of acting without the constraint of necessity or fate. Really, many times you don't have. Like if there's a fire in a house, do you have free will? Sure, you could stay and get burned, but you're probably going to run out. So free will is defined as the power of acting without the constraint of necessity or fate. The ability to act at one's own discretion. You can do whatever you want. Nothing's going to affect you. You're in charge. You're in control. which is interesting because as Black Mirror's Bandersnatch, which is Netflix's new interactive special that won't play on everything, as I said. I'll give you this, so if you have these devices, you can let me pull this up. So you can see it was written in Twine, which is an open source platform that allows for interactive fiction and narrative heavy games. But that requires devices with levels of technological sophistication in order to deliver proper interactive experience. An email from Netflix confirms that Bandersnatch isn't supported on Chromecast, Apple TV, and some legacy devices. Outdated hardware devices that don't support Netflix software updates like PlayStation Vita or Nintendo Wii are also unlikely to support Bandersnatch. So, you have to have the technology that's going to do it. I had it. I was excited. I was excited to take the different pathways because in life, as the story goes, you can choose, and with every choice, it opens up a whole new reality. This isn't old news, and this is it's been around since forever. The idea that there are an infinite amount of possibilities for our lives, and there is also a multi-dimensional belief out there that as I'm talking to you, there is also an infinite amount of me's talking to you, and an infinite amount that are maybe slight changes. Some people called it the Mandela effect, right? That we possibly died in one pathway in one lifetime, and then we were sucked back into another one. Which, as I said before, the lead character, this dude right here, the main programmer, he, in a session where he was trying to help the young programmer to unblock himself because he got trapped in what this guy calls a hole, where you're in your own head and you can't get out. He tried to help him with that. There's a lot of symbolism in here. There's a lot of dark symbolism, a lot of, Illuminati type symbolism throughout the film, which is pretty insane. A lot of it has to do with mind control as well. MK Ultra, stuff like that, trauma-based mind control. Conspiracy is the big thing, and that's what was a little, not like when I was watching this movie, I thought, isn't that interesting? It's like, this guy right here, he talks about everything that we talk about. And it sounds absolutely insane, and that's pretty much what, could happen, as there's an endless amount of pathways in life, right? There's a bunch of different pathways in this movie. Is the lead character going to go insane? What's going to happen? What is he going to do? Now, there's some weird things that I thought were just, because as I was participating in this, and Danielle was participating in this, and we had a lot of fun with it. And as I said before, it wasn't that great. It wasn't acted well. It did have that 80s flair about it, which I thought was kind of cool, but, it had a voyeuristic type of, there was like when you were watching it, you actually felt like maybe the character knew or felt that he or she was being watched by you. That perhaps as you're making these choices, the lead character felt as if they were being manipulated somehow by forces outside of them to make these decisions. This guy, in a drug-fueled ramble, he shares some real deep, powerful stuff about, the multiverse, and kind of paints a bleak picture about the fact that we are basically for the entertainment of others. We are completely controlled, and, that's why, you're in the maze. And he uses PacMan. PacMan is a big part of this film. You'll find this out. I don't think that this is ruining anything for you. But what I found interesting was, and it was a metaphor about PacMan that I've heard of before, and I'm sure you have as well, that the lead character, even though he may escape, he's being chased by demons, the ghosts, right? His all he has to do is consume. That's all he does is consume, and he doesn't really get a moment's rest, or she, depending which Miss Pac-Man or Pac-Man, whatever you're playing, and that you go off one side, but you come right back in the other, you can't get out. You're stuck in the maze, right? We talked about the maze on this channel. If you haven't seen that show, it had to do with the Minotaur. Go back and take a look at that. Trapped in a maze. So, the lead character, any choice you make, maybe you can end somebody's life, but you're not really ending their life. Now, this is crazy talk, because it gives a person the license to do that. That's why this is dangerous thinking. This is dangerous programming, if you will. And now when you're actively involved in choosing the narrative, you become part of the story yourself. So now are you being controlled? PacMan was, the lead character had said, was an anagram for program and control. PACS, a program and control study. It's about programming and controlling. And what was interesting about this is, I asked Danielle at one point, I said, I got to tell you, we're making all of these choices. And, all that information is now, like, are you going to choose a moral choice, or are you going to choose an immoral one? Are you going to pick up that bat to bash somebody's head in, or are you going to extend your hand and try to help that person up? Now, interactive role-playing games have been around for a long time. I remember when I was young, I had played interactive games like that, where you get to choose, and your choices are what gets you from point A to point B, or rags to riches, or life and death. Your choices are going to dictate where you're going to go in the future. Do you accept this, or do you refuse this offer? When he asks you, hey, you want to work here? What do? Are you going to accept, or are you going to refuse? And where does that lead you? Because these are choices that we have if we have free will. As I said, there was a lot of symbolism in this. This is a book that shows up quite often. And if you notice, now I'm just noticing this now for the first time, right next to that book, I believe, I could be wrong, but that looks like one of them Egyptian dung beetles. What are they called? I'm going to go to the chat. See who can figure this out without me having to look it up. You see that? That's like that's an interesting symbol. I didn't see that before. But that was all over the event that took. Thank you, Scarab. You all are all amazing. Is that what it is? Do you all agree? Because it kind of looks that way. To me. That's interesting, because I didn't see that, the scarab beetle. Yeah, there is so much stuff that you can miss. That's why I took a lot of pictures in this, and wow, this is an interesting thing. Locked Door, Get Key, a guide to writing adventure games. So, as this guy is going through his world, and we are making choices for him, we are affecting timelines, and we are creating different pathways. Some that bring joy, some that bring hate and pain. This is important stuff. Because then the question becomes, do we have free will? Now, I believe that to a certain amount we do. Okay. What if, I've questioned many times, what if you're, say, an infinite being, okay? And what would be the best way with dealing with an infinite amount of time? Knowing everything would be not knowing everything, not believing that you were infinite as well. You would be almost tricked into thinking you're something you're not, so that you could have this adventure, this path. I'd questioned when I was younger because you try to get the concept of God in your mind, and you try to think to yourself, what is, that's something so, that's why, even the scriptures say that it's impossible for people to know God, right? It's an impossibility. But you think about this. You think about, because I believe, and also science will back this out, that we're just, our physical life here, it's a short period of time, but that's not all there is to us. When we go to bed at night and we have dreams, I'm going to tell you about one of the dreams that I had. About a week and a half to 2 weeks before and leading up to Christmas. Terrible dream. Shared with Danielle, and I thought I shared with a couple of. I thought I told my buddy Bear, and I thought I told Jason about this dream, but I'd called them. I said, "Oh, you tell me about this," and I didn't. But this was a weird dream. But in that dream, I existed. There was my house, and there was this big, like, overweight guy, and he was wearing a dirty white tank top, and he had a big white beard, and he was ripping up floorboards, and there was water spurting out everywhere, and it was like my house was falling apart, and I was like, oh no, something's going down in the dream. It felt like it was real to me. I was experiencing panic, I was experiencing anxiety, and as I was having this dream, and I saw, all this stuff being revealed in my house, like there was flooding, but it wasn't really my house, which it was my house, but it wasn't, how dreams can be. I had this idea in the middle of the dream. This is happening because of that video you did about the 72 demons and the 72 emojis. That video, that goofy, kind of spooky video that I did. And so I had this dream. It must have been right after I did that show, so it was probably fresh in my mind. But it's an interesting tie-in to all this. My point is that when we have these dreams, where does that come from? How do we experience it? So we exist, we're existing, but we're not literally existing in there. We just think that we're existing in there. In a moment, it's like we're projected in that story, that drama. What do I do? Do I tell the heavyset guy, stop ripping up the floors? Do I attack him? Do I run to another room and say, oh no? Then I get that thought, which is interesting, because then you wake up and you say, it was just a dream, but I told Danielle, I said, maybe our pipes, or something's going to go wrong with our pipes or something, right? And I'm worried about this, and I don't get it. And it all made sense. I'm going to tell you at the end of the show, it all made sense at the end. That old guy was Santa. That's what that was. Yeah. Wait till you hear the rest of this story. And as I'm sharing this, getting this vibe, at the end, when I had the understanding that this dream actually meant something much bigger, and I had that thought about those 72 demons, guess what I see? Right? That was one of Ant's balloons that had escaped up. And so I had this revelation, this idea that, oh, my dream, okay, it makes sense, right? Leading up to Christmas, a bunch of stuff is going to go wrong. And it's because of these. And I see these, and I just think it's just so strange. And a bunch of stuff went wrong. But thank God it was all for the good. In life, it's like, what if there are these 72, right? What if there are some kind of, some outside influence, some spooky, maestros behind the scenes, like in this movie Bandersnatch. Like this dude right here, behind the scenes, pulling the strings, tormenting you, following you, chasing you like PacMan. You feel like a helpless victim. But you have these choices to make as you go in life. Choose right, you're cool. You choose left, maybe not so cool. But it all ties in somehow. So it was funny that here I'm watching that show. I'm watching this Black Mirror show, which is talking about this kind of stuff. And I had just had some kind of strange, weird thing happen. From a dream to my waking life, to then realizing what the dream meant and seeing that all that negativity, all those negative thoughts that were like flooding my mind, maybe they weren't my thoughts to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Maybe this lead character also realizes in the movie that when choices are being made for this lead character, little things are being whispered into his brain. Little things like, look at this and look at that. You shouldn't be happy about that. Look at those bills. Everything is piling up. How are we going to afford this? Thinking that those are your thoughts, when in fact, those thoughts, those little negative thoughts that are polluting us, that are getting us to think the worst, to say the worst, right? We have control over all that. That's why this movie is so interesting, because it basically paints the picture that you don't, but you do. And the irony is, even in the film, I believe the lead character figured that out. When you watch it, if you do watch it, it's a boring movie. I mean, it's boring. It's boring. It's interesting. It's philosophical. It's spiritual. It's spooky. It's in the, and if you like Philip K. Dick, if you know anything about Philip K. Dick, he was a firm believer that we were living in a simulation. That we don't live, this is not reality, that we live in a simulation. Yeah, that this is some kind of like a computer program. We're not the only ones. You got James Gates. Remember him? He was the Medal of Science winner. Barack Obama's, he was in charge of something, you know, smart guy. The advisor to the president, big dude in string theory, quantum theory. Well, he was, did this show with Neil deGrasse Tyson. It was this big event. I think it was in 2016. I don't have it here. But he was famously taped saying that he was using mathematical equations to balance everything, quantum theory and general relativity, and what he found was computer code. You know, at like the very fabric of everything, he found computer code. And he said it was a very specific browser code, like the one that Google runs on, which makes you think, you know, it's interesting. And so he says, so now I'm left with the thought that I'm living in the Matrix. So are we living in the Matrix? Because this movie makes it seem that way. It actually brings up the question, are you just kind of a character that is being viewed by somebody else? And that you have no purpose but to entertain them? There are a lot of philosophies and a lot of faiths that believe that there are forces, angelic forces, demonic forces, hope, you know, fear, truth, lies, thoughts. Jesus said, he says, my words are spirit and they are truth. Spirit, spirits, thought. My words are spoken thought. So we're fed thought, spirit. Spirits whisper in our ears, if you will. And we think, and this is the problem, is if we can't differentiate between what is our voice and what is not, like what is our voice? You know? Who's in charge here? See, that's the reason why, you know, when people come to me and they say, you know, Jacob this and Jacob that, well, tell me what I should do and tell me what Bible to read and blah, blah. I said, don't go to me. I'm not on here. I got a lot of people, got people that do videos about, you know, God told them I'm this. Got another video, somebody said that I'm not human. So just weird, man, it's just weird, you know. I'm not here telling you anything because I can just share what I'm learning because I'm seeking more. And I believe that there is more, and I ponder these deep questions, these big questions. Do we have free will? See, I believe that if there was a loving God, this is just my theory, okay? Now, this is not, I'm not telling you this is the way it is. A creator that created everything, that a system would be created so that in the end, as the scriptures say, all would be saved. Because a lot of people don't even know that the Bibles talk about It talks about how it's God's will that all be saved. And what are they saved from? No one even knows this. It's ironic. You saved from the lies you believe. You exist in this reality that's not real. It's a lie. It's a fabrication. It's what's called. It's called simulacrum. It's like a simulation, but it's like Disneyland is not reality. It's a simulacrum of reality. So you're believing a bunch of lies. If it's not true, you're stuck into it. You're stuck in it. You can't get out of it because you don't know any better. You're stuck in the maze. You see why I found this movie so interesting and why I came on here today. Not to just tell you this is a good movie, this is a bad movie. It's a bad movie, it's boring. But it is a very important movie to ponder. Are you in charge? Who is steering your ship? It's important. It's an important question. I'm going to go over here in the chat. I want to see how many of you feel helpless, because I certainly don't. I feel like there is more to what we're capable of. I believe that the problem is we, for so many years, have been lied to. For so many years, we've been controlled and programmed and studied. It's from this movie. PAX, Program and Control Study. Darian, thank you very much. Wow, man, I appreciate that. Hey, first of all, I just want to thank you for allowing God to use you in the way he has. Your videos have helped my faith, my understanding. But I was wondering if you could elaborate on Hebrews 10. You don't have to now, just sometime. I will absolutely elaborate on Hebrews 10. Hebrews 11 is one of my favorite books of all time. I'm not going to elaborate on it right now because that takes us in a whole other direction. But I definitely will, Darian. I appreciate that. Do we have free will? Do we? Are we in charge? Or not? I don't know. I'm pulling up Hebrews because I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be blowing that question off, because what if that's something? You see, that's the way it is, right? Hang on a second. Let me come on over here. Because this is kind of funny. Because that's the way it is sometimes, right? Like I had a choice just to kind of say, I'm not going to talk about the Hebrews. What's the point? I'll talk about it soon. But then at that point, I thought to myself, well, hang on a second. Was that me thinking that thought? Is there something deeper at Hebrews 10? See, you start to think about that stuff, and then it can really mess you up. You can start saying things like, well, maybe you're not in charge at all of your thoughts. And I don't want anybody to go there, because we are in charge. That's the whole thing. The whole thing is that we can choose what thought. And see, when I come on here, if I wanted to sow a bunch of hate, sow a bunch of fear, and sow a bunch of nonsense in you, instead of making you laugh, making you smile, trying to at least, usually, for the people that think that I get a lot of, you're too childish, you're too this, you're too that, and it gets me upset. Because, not gets me upset like I'm angry, but it gets me like bummed out. I'm like, you're not getting it. I do it because I enjoy it. It's fun for me. If you want you want Jacob on, 5, you watch a live stream. Come to a live stream. That's fine. So, the choice, who's in charge here? Okay, so I'm going to read this because I thought to myself, maybe Hebrews chapter 10, maybe it ties into the show somehow. And it wasn't like I'm not Rain Man. I don't know every thing off the bat, but all right, so let me read this. For the law, having a shadow of good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never with those sacrifices which are offered year by year continually make the comers perfect. It's interesting. You think about that for a second. What that means is that you're actually, you can't go and you can't tithe a bunch of times and be perfect. You got to be set free from the lies. Got to be set free from the lies, right? No matter how many good things you do, no matter how many good deeds you do, you got to be set free from the lies. It has to be more than just that. Can't be just. For then would they have not ceased the offering, because the worshippers, once purged, should have no more conscience of sins. But in those sacrifices, there is a remembrance again, and those sins are made every year. It's like you're stuck in this loop again and again and again, right? So what they do every year is they would go and they'd sacrifice, and then they're like, okay, we're good for a little while. Then they go make the sins, and they continue to do it again and again and again. And they're stuck in a maze, right? Choices are being made for them. You may not think that the choices are being made for you, but they are. Your whole life has formed you into thinking you are who you are. But you have a choice. You can be whoever you want to be. You know, you change everything. Just decide. That's kind of an ancient mystery, right? That you can actually decide. You can choose. Just because someone gave you the name Philip, right, doesn't mean that you have to, that you're Philip. It doesn't mean that at all. You're kind of in charge. So what I'm going to take from this chapter 10 right now, I'm not going to get into this right now because I'm feeling this is not going to go where I need to go. But what I take from this is that these choices that we're given, that you can experience right now on Netflix, you can go and you can kind of, I don't know, experience it for yourself, see what this movie is all about. These choices, they may not be us. You know, they may not be us saying, don't let that person get away with that. Tell them, remind them of the time they did this. You know, these, you know what I'm talking about. You know these thoughts that come to our heads. You know, you get into a fight with somebody and all of a sudden you got all these great zingers, right? And you keep flying on back. So, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to end this because there is a, I was going to do a show on, this is why I think it's great that you all stick around, because you actually get the really cool show. Because it's always, I always put it at the end for you. Okay? Saturn is officially losing its rings. Saturn. Okay? Now, when I saw this, I had thought to myself immediately that rings have, that they're almost like it's a sphere of influence. I don't know why I thought that. Saturn is losing its rings. If you don't know anything about Saturn, Saturn is very symbolic with Satan. Saturn worship, it's a big thing. You know, we just celebrated a holiday that many say was based on Saturnalia. It's a big, we're not going to get into that right now. But Saturn is officially losing its rings. What's happening is they're dissipating. All that stuff that makes up the rings that go around Saturn, they're being basically raining into Saturn. They're being sucked in. So not in a short period of time, but pretty soon, those rings are going to be gone. Now, why this was cool for me was because I saw that and I thought that spiritually, and then Bear texted me about, like, what's going on with Saturn? I go, and I responded with Satan losing influence. And then I felt like 2019, because that's what this is all about. And that's why I think it's interesting that Bandersnatch comes out like right before 2019, the new year. You do have a choice. You're not stuck. You will get ahead, and you can be free. Okay? Saturn is losing its rings, losing its influence. Okay, now why is this important? I have that weird dream about this heavyset guy with the white beard ripping up the floorboards, denting my refrigerator, and I'm running around. I am concerned about this dream. I tell Danielle about it. I say, I don't know, I hope there's something. Because it's a true story. When we bought the house that we're living in right now, I had dreams for like 3 months that the roof was leaking. The roof was leaking. The roof was leaking. So much so that I believed that there was a problem with the roof. So much so that I had it like, you know, written in to things. And Danielle and I, Danielle just said, stop worrying, stop worrying. It was like within a week of us owning the home, there was a terrible blizzard, and guess what? Everything leaked. Dreams. There's more to your dreams than you know. I believe that it is the way for, without upsetting anyone, right? I believe that God speaks to us through dreams. In the book of Job, it says that in a dream, in a vision of the night, when men are deep in their slumber, God reveals their purpose to them. So you have these dreams, and if you remember the dream and you have this feeling that this dream is of some significant spiritual value and you want to know what it is, you got to ask, right? The problem is, I'm not that great at figuring it out. I knew that it had something to do with thoughts, because in the middle of the dream, I'm like reminded that this is because I did that video about the demons. So this was happening because those demons, right? Now, what are demons? In Scripture, and I believe it's the book of Exodus, it says that they sacrificed unto devils, unto gods they knew not, unto gods they newly created. The devil is the father of all lies. The father of all lies would be the one that gives birth to nothing but lies. A demon would be a messenger of the devil, the father of all lies. A demon would be a lie, a lying spirit, the scriptures call them. And sometimes I say, I tell people that demons are lies, and then they say, "Oh, no, you're blaspheming," and I'm not, because lies are demons, right? You know what I'm saying? It's a spirit. You're being fed these thoughts from somewhere. You're being tempted. Because we're in the game, we're in the maze, we're in this place. And the God of this world, the one that's in charge, that's why this is so right in your face. That's the dude that's pursuing you. The irony is, right after watching this movie, I went on YouTube and I was watching this artificial intelligent mouse in this figure out this maze, like in a record amount of time. It was spooky. Here all, and I didn't even make the connection between the two, that I'm watching this movie about all of these different pathways, but there's no escape, to being trapped in the maze, to seeing that there. So I have this dream. I don't know what it means. The day before Christmas Eve, I go in to get on because I'm excited. I got Danielle so much stuff. I got her so much great stuff. And she, every year, okay, and I'm gonna confess something. She is much better with handling. She lets things go. She doesn't worry as much as me. She's not like sensitive in that way. I worry. I was formed in an environment where you have to constantly be in panic. And I was very poor. My mother had me when she was 18. My father took off. We lived in the projects. I was very poor growing up, very poor, in a very wealthy town. So I've been very blessed in my life. But I live in my means. I always have. And so I get stressed. I got really stressed. And Danielle likes to shop. What woman doesn't, right? And she's allowed to. And I asked her, I said, don't buy stuff for yourself. Will you just this year, because I'm getting you a lot of stuff. And it was weird because I'd come home and she'd be wearing something that I just bought her. I'm like, oh, I said, so then I had to go and return it. Then something else did something, but it wasn't really that big of a deal, but it became a big deal because it happened like 3 or 4 times. Okay. So I come on the day before Christmas Eve, the night before Christmas Eve, to get the gifts. I'm going to bring them back to work. I'm going to wrap them. And I see yet another gift that I got, that she had gotten herself. And of course I make some stupid comment. I say something like, I told you not to buy it. Well, now you got another hat and gloves, right? And then she goes, shut up. Next thing you know, both of us were in this stupid fight. Like, we haven't fought. Like, that's, if you watch the video, because I was screaming like a little baby, right? Screaming. She was yelling. We were doing this stupid stuff. The kids were like, guys, can you cut it out? You haven't fought like this in a while. What are you doing? You're going to make up. You're being selfish. And we fought for like 24 hours. It wasn't a big deal. But it was a big deal for us. But the interesting thing is, halfway through this fight's going on, because I'm stressed out about Christmas, because the consumption of it, right? It's not my thing, really. I mean, and the best part is, just so you know, when I had that revelation of it because of the dream, and I realized it was almost like a warning. Santa was ripping up my house, and I was allowing it, but it wasn't. It was because of the demons. It was the lies. So it was almost like a warning. You're about to go into a time of testing, right? Don't listen. You're in charge, and that's the best part, is that I am in charge and she's in charge. And even though we can be carried away with the voice of the strange woman, as I believe the book of Proverbs puts it, the voice of the strange woman, the adulterous woman, the liar, right? You listen to those lies, and at first it feels like, yes, you should say that. Yes, you should, right? And the irony is, you allow these thoughts, you can ruin everything. You can even ruin Christmas. And how many people ruin Christmas, right? How many people ruin the holidays? How many people hate each other, attack each other, do horrible things to each other, lie about each other, because they're being played. They're being played. They think that they're saying the things that they want to say, but really they're being fed a bunch of lies. I'm here to tell you, not every thought that goes into your head is from you. There are other dimensions, okay? There are other dimensions. Quantum physics says it's just 11 dimensions. So you don't think that there could be interdimensional beings? You don't think that there could be demons, devils? You don't think that words have power and a life to themselves? Vibration is all there is, people. Think about that for a second. God spoke and everything came into be. So, have that dream, right? And of course, I get the idea that the dream now here's more being fed a bunch of lies. Because let me tell you something, Danielle, you haven't met a man that loves a woman like I love my wife. And it isn't because it was easy. Marriage is not easy. It's because I chose to love her. And my love is so deep for her because of all the stuff that we've been through, all the arguments and all the hard times and all the issues and all we're a blended family. I had custody of my two children. I was a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, full time with daddy, right? Full time 3-year-old with mommy. We get together like this. In-laws that don't want us to get together. We had like the world against us. Working for a television network that was this Christian television network, and I'm telling them, you can't, you don't know the truth. Look at the way you treat people. Look what you're doing. How can I work for you? How can I do this? We've had things. We all have these things, but the difference is, I believe, that all of our hardships and all the things we go through, right? Forgiveness is the key. You got to forgive. You got to forgive. Forgiveness means letting it go completely, not bringing it up again. It means that you've released that person of the debt. It's not like, I forgive you, but I'm not going to give you a hug until I'm over this. That's not forgiveness. That's punishment, just so you know, okay? We all go through these times. We all have these problems, but they all work together for our good, and that's the important thing. And it all worked together for my good. I don't know. Anybody in the chat? Anybody in the chat? Let me come on over here for a second. Let me see. Anybody in the chat room? Anybody in the chat room know what I'm talking about? Y'all ever have that problem where you get all these nasty things sent to you, and you think they're your thoughts, and the next thing you know, you're spouting them out like they are? I don't know. I don't know. So here's the good news. Okay, so here's the good news. For some reason, everything's glitching out in the chat. I can't really see anything moving. I hope we're still here. If we're here, we are. If we're not, we're not. No big deal. The good news is, so as I have this understanding about this dream, and I understand that it was almost like a warning, and I took it the wrong way, because I took it to mean that the house was built on lies. Not true. Because Santa was just ripping up the floorboards. Santa was messing stuff up. Santa was breaking a bunch of nonsense. That's what the problem was. And as I have this silly dream, and as I'm fighting with Danielle, and I think about these 72 emojis, these 72 demons, I'm walking down the stairs, and I look up, and I'm like, what is that? Boom. Anthony's balloon. Guess what I chose to do at that moment? I'm like, it's not going to happen. Made up with Danielle, right? wrapped stuff together, got ready, brought everything down to where it needed to be, and we had the best Christmas I've ever had in my entire life. All the children, best Christmas ever. It was amazing. And I hope that yours was too. And I know that this new year, this 2019, this is the important thing. Saturn is losing its rings. There is a spiritual significance to this. The influence of evil, lies, is fading away. You're in charge. Here's the thing. Take your thoughts captive. Jesus said that. Test the spirits to see if they be of God or not. A spirit is thought. Test them to see if they be of God. How would you know if they're of God or not? There's no fear in them because God doesn't give you the spirit of fear. So if you ever get a thought that somebody says, oh, I'm coming home late, and you're thinking, oh, they're up to no good. He's out there doing that stupid bowling again with his buddies and drinking all that beer. Yeah, I knew that's what he's... And meanwhile, he could be getting you a gift, right? But don't be listening to these. Anything that brings fear, it's usually not from God to begin with. Anything that gets you angry, wanting to strike out, usually not from God. Never from God. The truth is that if it is something that is kind and good, of good report, think on these things. Love, right? It's patient, it's kind. Charity, it's long-suffering. It endures. It doesn't point out your flaws. It never fails. Those are the thoughts of God. And they don't come very loud like the stuff that gets you all crazy, gets you angry. That stuff is banging in your head all the time. Easy to hear those thoughts. No. After all the dust is settled, after all the yelling is done, right? Then you hear the voice of God. My beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased, right? That's what we're waiting to hear. You're loved. You are here for a reason. You are trapped in the maze. Someone's been making the choices for you. They've been saying yes and no for you, accept and refuse for you, and you just went along with it. But 2019 is the time that you live your life, because you're going to start seeking the truth no matter what the cost, because it's God's will that all be saved and all come to the knowledge of the truth. What's the truth? I'm not going to tell you that, but I will say it's definitely rooted in love. And you know how I know that? Because there was a guy named Yahshua. You may know him as Jesus. And his story, there's more to that story. You want to know about it, you should look into it. Because his story is our story too. And without it, right, I would not know salvation if it wasn't for Jesus. I would not know the truth. I would not know the Father. I would not know whatever I did not know before if it wasn't for. Because you have to have the last Adam from the first. The first brought death into the world. But the last is a shepherd. The first idea of you is not who you really are. And that's why 2019, you should be excited. And I hope that you do ask for the truth, no matter what the cost. Because it's the only way out of here, people. It's the only way out of here, you know? So I think you should stop worrying about if those thoughts are yours or not, and start choosing the thoughts that you want, you know? In the game of life, this is not Bandersnatch, the boring movie that has a great concept. It's very cool. In the game of life, you are more, my friends. And I love all of you for it. I hope you do subscribe. I hope you share it around. I hope you do what you got to do. Oh, by the way, thank you for all of you that are, let me come on over here and see if anybody at all can see me. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for telling your friends. Thank you for being you. Start living for more, all right? Stop letting your nonsense thoughts become your thoughts. They're not yours, right? These lies, don't listen to them anymore. Time to move on. Sharon Hip, thank you very much. I appreciate it. As Anna Rodriguez says, the truth will set you free, and I agree. I love you guys. I'm so grateful for you. And I think that you should check out Bandersnatch if you have Netflix. It was a cool show. I dug it, but I think it failed miserably. You're just being honest, I love each and every one of you, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. See you around. I'm going to stick around in the chat for a little while. And so if you want to say hi, I'll be there.